Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Well, hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live here on YouTube, where either myself or my good friend and fellow artist and art teacher Ashley Hurst tries to create a drawing for you guys inside of 45 minutes. And don't worry, this is all timed. We have a timer and everything. It's very, very dramatic. Of course, the whole point is to practice sketching so that you get better at your drawing and painting skills. And also, it's a lot of fun as well. So just to preface this, it is getting sketchy. So the resulting drawing is going to be a little bit sketchy. But anyway, it should be a lot of fun. And tonight, Ashley is going to be creating the drawing. How are you doing over there, Ashley?
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for asking. I've been looking at our subject, trying to kind of plot my way through it in my mind before we begin. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we look at it. But I'm excited. It should be a challenge, and I can move fast.
And tonight, Ashley's going to be drawing with just a regular old graphite pencil and white drawing paper. So you don't have to have any fancy materials. Of course, you're welcome to use any medium or combination of medium that you wish. For this, we're going to be working from a black and white photo, which we'll take a look at in just a minute. If you are new to this channel or you haven't done so yet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you're notified when we post a new video. We do Getting Sketchy every once in a while for a season. So we do 10 episodes and then we take a little bit of a break from Getting Sketchy on YouTube. But I will continue to post videos here on the channel during the time that we're not doing Getting Sketchy, of course. And I'm continually posting videos over at thevirtualinstructor.com. So if you want to go deeper with your drawing and painting instruction, we have a membership program over there that includes a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subject matter and mediums, of course. So we cover colored pencils, pen and ink, charcoal, graphite pencil drawing, of course. Just about any medium that you can think of, we have a course for. There's also weekly live lessons. So after Getting Sketchy tonight, we're going to be over at thevirtualinstructor.com and continuing with our current live lesson series where Ashley is doing a still life with oils. He's got the underpainting in place. He's got the underpainting in place. And tonight he's going to start adding color to the painting as well. So it should be a lot of fun. And now I'm turning Ashley's mic back up. I was just told that Ashley's mic was not turned up, but now it is. So we'll go back to him in just a minute. But anyway, if you want to check out the membership program, there's a link in the description below. You can also check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free. Again, there's a link in the description below if you want to check that out as well. So let's go back to Ashley and check and see if he's ready to go tonight. Ashley, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, and hopefully my microphone is ready to go now. So let us know if it's working properly or not working properly. If you missed it, because I was speaking so softly, it was actually my mic. But I'd said that our subject is challenging, and we're going to have to move pretty quickly with it. So when we take a look at our subject, we'll talk about how we're going to start and tackle this this pair of objects. Remember, my theme this season is to work with pairs. So I did a key with a lock, a nut, and a bolt, and 2 plugs that fit together. And this week's subject is a glove and a ball, a baseball glove and a ball.
All right. And if you are watching this live on YouTube, remember you got to be watching it live to participate in the live chat. But you're welcome to post questions and comments. And as we see those comments and questions, we'll address them here. If you put them all in, if you put your comment or question in all capital letters, that will help me see it a little bit easier amongst all the other comments and questions. And they don't have to be about what we're talking about tonight. Of course, they can be about what we're doing tonight, but maybe anything art related, and we'll do our very best to answer those questions for you. So hello to everyone from all over the world here. I'll start going through the places where you guys are from when we get a chance. We should have the audio all worked out now. Of course, Ashley's mic was turned off, actually. So anyway, we're ready to go back into this. This is live, right? So
That's
all
right.
So let's go ahead and switch over.
All right, there it is. So if you're wondering, that is in fact my baseball glove. I think I got it when I was 12. hadn't seen a lot of action in the last couple of decades. My son played Little League for a few years, so I got to break it out a little bit then, and we're going to break it out a little bit today. Now, there's a lot of texture in this drawing. There's the wrinkly texture of the old leather. There's the texture of the ball. Those are the kinds of things we're going to ignore. You know, when we're sketching, we're looking mostly for shapes and values and trying to get those types of elements of art established, shape and value. Those are more important to me than the element of art texture, at least early in a drawing. And pretty much with a 45-minute sketch, the whole drawing is pretty much early in a drawing. So a subject like this, if we wanted to work it up with full texture and detail, we could probably work on it for hours, 6 to 10 hours, something like that. So I'm going to be using graphite. And you may remember a couple of weeks ago, I told you guys that I was going to use black paper next, but I've pushed that off to my last drawing. So we are working on white sketch paper today with just regular graphite. This is an ebony pencil. You can use any pencil, but this is equivalent to about a 3B drawing pencil. If you have a set of drawing pencils with H or B designations, a 2 or 3B would be a good choice. And additionally, I plan to do a lot of work with the kneaded eraser. Okay, if you look at the leather, there's a lot of gradation from sort of a medium gray to a light gray. So my plan is to, and those grays sort of fade or mingle with one another. They fade in and out of one another gradually, not necessarily sharp, distinct edges between the lighter and darker values. So the kneaded erasure should help us to capture that quality simply by overshading and then bringing it back by pressing the kneaded eraser in. Of course, you could work with a different approach. You could just sort of work towards the dark, shading lightly at first and then adding more layers into the darker areas. I'm going to try to work a little bit both additive and subtractive. So I'm going to add material and then remove the material. Speaking of removing the material, there's some small light details in this drawing. If you look up where the pocket of the glove is, there's sort of a woven pattern up there with some small light edges on the leather. So I'll probably use a sharp-edged eraser for those, maybe a pink eraser like this one, maybe the Tombow, and probably also an electric eraser. It's not required. You could work without one of these smaller erasers. You just might have to clean up your edges if you were to use an eraser like this to pull out the details. But you can see a pink eraser, like a pink pearl, and any pink eraser like a pink pearl would work, does have sort of a sharp edge on it. So we've got a variety of erasers and one pencil, and I think we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and bring up the timer. I will point out that the glove is at an angle from corner to corner, just for compositional purposes. I felt like the diagonal edges were more interesting, so I laid the glove at an angle. And we've got 2 empty triangles. You know, I like triangles in composition, so I like those 2 big empty triangles are going to help me actually find the shape of the glove just by focusing on the shape of the empty spaces. The ball itself isn't in the middle, it's to the right and below the middle, so hopefully that will be, as a focal point, it won't create sort of the bullseye effect where we get stuck in the middle, and instead when we see the ball, I feel like the ball is the focal point because it's bright or light, and then it has the stitches, which are pretty distinct patterns, so it's kind of attractive in that way, but hopefully our eye can still meander around the composition since the ball's not right in the middle. All right, I think we're about ready to get started.
All right, I've popped up the timer.
Okay.
And real quick, a couple things. Tina asked, will you replay these demos? And yeah, they'll be available for replay almost immediately on YouTube. These, of course, are recorded by YouTube. And let's see here. There were a couple other questions. A couple of people pointed out that you should do pairs, or why haven't we done pairs, as in the fruit pears, a pair of pears.
That's a great idea.
And I actually had that same thought when you were talking about pears.
You guys are so witty.
I know. Let's.
Well, there's I do draw in 2 more weeks. Now I did have an idea for that drawing that my son gave me, but I'm not against drawing pairs. So it's in the running.
It looks like we've got folks from Saudi Arabia, Minnesota, Texas, Calgary, Canada, Montreal, Canada, Michigan, Minnesota, Indiana, Chicago, another from Canada, Indiana, let's see here, just to continue down, Republic of South Africa, Sydney, Australia. So time is not stopping folks here from joining us live here, and we appreciate that, guys.
All hours around the globe, so how exciting.
Let's see. Let's see. Ramsey says, if you have to stop, will there be stoppage time? No stoppage time. We keep going. We actually are going to be live at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as part of the membership program. So we actually don't have time to really just stop.
Because we have another show to do.
Someone from Egypt, assuming that's Connecticut here, White Plains, New York, British Columbia, Canada. Let's see here. Someone asked about the interactive color wheel. Gary asked if I get a membership, which I'm definitely going to. I want to know if the interactive color wheel is going to be available. I absolutely love it. And I absolutely love it too, Gary. Here's the thing. The interactive color wheel has always been free. It's not been exclusive for membership. And the interactive color wheel is actually something that I programmed and coded many, many, many years ago using a program that doesn't exist anymore. And I had converted the interactive color wheel so it would work with modern browsers, but it was a big drag on the system. So I'm going to have to recode the interactive color wheel at some point in order for it to work and function and not pull down, basically slow the site, because a lot of schools were using the interactive color wheel, and then if you got 100 users trying to use something that's already pulling pretty hard on the system, that doesn't work out too well. So the interactive color wheel needs to be recoded before it comes back again, but it will be free when it does come back. It's just, it's a lot of work to do that, and I already have a lot of work. But yeah, I love the interactive color wheel. I wish there was a way that I could bring it back. Possibly I might do it as a separate app, like a separate application that you could download on your phone or iPad for free, but that hasn't happened yet. But I appreciate the fact that you did like the interactive color wheel when we did have it up, but the plans of bringing it back are still there. Other people are suggesting some subjects, so pomegranate. I saw some fruits and things, bugs. People are suggesting subjects.
Bugs?
Yeah, cute bugs, I guess.
A pair of turtle doves?
And guys, I appreciate the questions you're asking. Some of the questions would require like a piece of paper and a pencil to actually show you some of these things. Like Alana's asking for advice on drawing a house with 2-point perspective if the vanishing points are off the page. And,
I prefer the vantage points off the page. It looks a little more natural.
Oh yeah, so that's definitely what happens.
I love how you're thinking.
Yeah, in reality, anyway, very seldomly do you have both vanishing points on the picture plane, and even normally you really don't even have one vanishing point on the picture plane when you're dealing with 2-point perspective. Sometimes you do, but what I would advise you to do is take a larger sheet of paper if you want to be very consistent with the location of the vanishing points, and put that underneath your drawing paper, and that way that will allow you to extend those vanishing points if you want. You can use a larger straight edge to line those up, like a yardstick or a meter stick, to make sure that your perspective stays accurate, but your vanishing points are off the picture plane. So all right. Ashley's continuing. He's making great progress already.
So I put a couple of big shapes in. Thank you for doing all the talking early on, because I need to concentrate for just a few minutes to sort of wrap my mind around the subject.
I knew that was the case. Yeah. So you want to explain how you arrived at this?
There are a lot of details in here, and I want to just make sure I capture some of them. We don't need all of the details for this to be a convincing drawing, because no one is going to see, of course, our finished subject. But if we have no details, it'll feel too I guess, a little bit too plain, too simplified. So I went ahead and found a couple of stitches early on just to make sure that I get them in there. I want these knots in there also. As far as the webbing up here, it's so attractive. It looks so great. And I hope we can pull that off. But some of these other details, I don't plan to draw with outlines. I'm planning to try to pull them out of the shading. And that's what I'm going to try to do with this webbing up here in the pocket of the glove. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, if you're drawing along, you can use an approach that's more comfortable for you. It could be an approach that maybe takes longer than 45 minutes, and that would be totally appropriate. But I'm going to try to do hint at some of this detail in the shading. Also, as I do put these little lines in, I'm going ahead and putting them in with some character. You know, a little bit of, ordinarily, if I were to spend hours on this, I would probably draw with smoother lines and then go back and wrinkle them up. But we don't have time for that because we're sketching. So I'm going to go ahead and try to capture the character of some of these types of wiggly leather edges as I draw them in. And if they don't land in exactly the right place, I'm just going to leave them there. We're just going to go with it because of the because it's a sketch, and we're mostly focused on, at least for me, you know, you have to have a goal when you're sketching, and it could be texture, but for me, the goal is going to be value.
So you mentioned that your line is got a little bit of character in it, and I actually have frequently folks will tell me that they can't hold the pencil so that it creates a controlled line, and they're concerned about that. And this is a perfect subject for you because you don't need a controlled line. You actually need sort of a wiggly line with some variety, some variability to it. Well, what I was going to say is I think it's okay to have a wiggly line. In fact, a lot of times that's kind of encouraged. That gives it an element of life and character, as you said, to the drawing. So if you're having trouble keeping your pencil perfectly controlled, don't let that stop you.
Yeah, it may not even be necessary.
A couple of people have suggested a couple of pairs, coffee and biscuits, teapot and a teacup is another one.
And I love coffee, so.
Books and a reading lamp.
Definitely a possibility.
Or a Kindle and a lamp.
That's funny. Okay, now a couple of weeks ago, I did a drawing with keys and a lock, and I said that I was going to shade often and shade early, and I'm going to stick with that. So I'm just going to get a few more. I'm going to draw this knot, this leather knot in here, and then I'm probably going to go ahead and start shading, and in some ways we'll lose a few of these lines that we put in, or they'll be less visible, but they'll still be there.
Okay, a couple of questions here real quick. Someone mentioned that they bought kneaded erasers and they snapped and crumbled. Can you suggest a good brand? And I was going to suggest Faber-Castell. I always buy Faber-Castell kneaded erasers.
A kneaded eraser snapped.
I'm not really sure how that could have happened.
Now, there is a crumbly eraser, the gummy erasers.
Yeah,
you know
an
what I'm
art gum
talking
eraser
about?
will crumble.
But so I don't know if you were sold a gum eraser.
Well, I've come across some kneaded erasers
just old,
that were definitely lower quality.
Okay.
And usually
to.
they're the ones that are colored. You know, that are like
there's
a blue
orange
or
and blue
yellow.
ones,
Yeah. But Faber-Castells have always been really good for me.
I used a Lyra kneaded eraser one. Actually, I ordered about 45 of them, and they were horrible. Oh,
really?
And it wasn't that they were crumbly; they were actually too sticky. You know, they pulled everything off the page almost until they got really, really dirty. So I felt like they were a little too hard to use. So I've had some. They're not all the same, I guess, is the moral of the story here. You got to find a brand that works for you.
Here's a good question that you're going to be able to help some people out with. Joan McDonald asked, any tips for accuracy for the size of the drawing if you're not using a grid or the like?
Yes. Well, I like to, and you may have seen me, I'm not sure, hold my arm out a couple of times. I was trying to find the center of my composition. My subject is directly in front of me. It's vertical so that I can, I'm not drawing from life, but I try to draw as though I'm drawing from life. So my reference is vertical in front of me so I can hold my pencil out and check measurements. So one thing I've been checking is just where the halfway point is and just trying to get parts that are supposed to be below halfway. and where and vice versa. Whatever should be in the top half, make sure it lands somewhere in that area. And the same thing for the center vertically. So in that way, I'm imagining a really simple grid of 4 quadrants. Okay, I'm just trying to imagine it that way because I can divide the picture plane and also my reference in halves pretty easily. Quarters, maybe not so much. So that's something that I like to look at. The same thing along the edge of the page. One thing I noticed is that my glove entered the edge of entered my composition on the left slightly below the center. So then I just used my pencil to find about where the middle is and made sure I started it below the center. It may be a little bit further below, I'm not sure, but at least it's below, so it's going to be close. So that's something that I do as far as sighting, at least even in a sketch, just sort of find where the center should be and make sure parts land on either side of it appropriately.
Very good advice. And the first thing Ashley was referring to is typically referred to as measuring, mapping, sighting. Everybody calls it something a little bit.
I think I call it sighting. I might have just done that. I'm not sure. I use that phrase.
And the second thing he pointed out about finding where elements go off the page is somewhat like thinking about your picture plane like a smaller grid within a larger composition. So it's kind of the same thing you do with a larger grid if you are drawing with a grid. I like
to compare parts to my imagination of what vertical and horizontal is because I'm really good at imagining vertical and horizontal, and I say that kind of in jest because I think all humans are. You know, if you told me to draw a 32-degree angle, I would get it probably close-ish. But if you ask me to draw a 90-degree angle, right, something vertical and horizontal, I'll nail it every time. I don't know why, but we can imagine that angle pretty well, which is probably why our buildings look the way they do, us humans.
All right, couple of questions here. This might be the same person just repeating the question. Where should I start when wanting to learn anatomy?
Probably, anatomy for the artist.
I'm assuming that because my sarcastic response would be, an anatomy book. But I definitely think that in context, this person is talking about anatomy in terms of art.
I would say just draw more people. You know, you're going to absorb the some of the anatomy, that is relevant to artists just through observation, like where the origin of a muscle is, how a bicep tucks up underneath the shoulder muscle. You know, little things like that are more relevant to an artist than the name of the shoulder muscle, anterior and posterior deltoid. That's not so important to us, but how one muscle sort of tucks up underneath or is overlapped by another muscle, that is pretty important to us. So my suggestion would be just spend a lot more time drawing, whether it's from life or from photographs, people.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And people learn differently and like to have different amounts of knowledge. I'll put it that way. There are, when I was in school, we had a teacher that was really obsessed with the anatomy and wanting us to learn the anatomy. And then we had another teacher that could care less about the anatomy. And both teachers were effective, and I learned from both of them. So, some people are going to want to know what's underneath the skin. And some people are just going to approach drawing the human figure like they're approaching any other subject, like a baseball mitt and a glove,
or vegetables. Drawing people's a lot like drawing vegetables. I feel like. Drawing is about observation. It's about understanding what you're seeing and putting it on the paper. So it's going to vary from person to person whether or not you need to know a lot about anatomy or not. But some people, like I said, are going to want to know what's underneath the skin so that they can better understand how the shadows are playing out in their drawing. Where to start with anatomy? I'm not really sure. I would maybe combine your studies. And I'll tell you what, there is an older book called, I think it's called Dynamic Anatomy for the Artist. Does that sound familiar to you?
I have no idea.
It's Under My Stairs. I have a bookshelf.
That's not the title of the book.
No,
just
no.
For everyone.
That's just where the book happens to be in my house. And it is a book that I used a lot, and it does use anatomical names, but everything in the book is a drawing. It has all been drawn. The instruction has been drawn, and I think it's fantastic. And I want to say the word dynamic and the word anatomy are in the title. So that would be a great book because it kind of hits, I guess, the proper usage of terms and things like that, so that you can talk with other artists about anatomy, and everybody knows what you're actually referencing. And instead of saying this little thingy over here and that little thingy over there,
right?
But it's geared specifically to artists. So
the way I would normally refer to things,
and we call things thingies all the time here on Getting Sketchy and at the Virtual Instructor. But that's not. It's because we're drawing subjects we're often not as familiar with biologically, but. In any case, I think that it's a great book, and I used to actually copy the drawings in there. I feel like I absorbed anatomy best just by copying other artists that did it well. So, and I guess that's arguable. I was going to say one of the artists I copied a lot as a student was Michelangelo. Of course, he did make up a lot of muscles. I mean, if you look at the backs of his figures, it looks like they had extra muscles in there. So, but he still was pretty accurate for the most part.
Okay, there's a suggestion here. Kate suggests if you'd like a book recommendation, Figure Drawing Design and Invention is her favorite. So that's Figure Drawing Design and Invention. Thanks for that, Kate. And let's see. Adrian says, do you have any tips on shading accurately?
Well, a great tip is to actually use a value scale, use and apply a value scale. And boy, I wish I had one right now. But you can find, there's tons of videos. Some of them are probably mine or Matt's on YouTube about making value scales and then using those along with during your drawing process. So were I to have a value scale, here, I'll make one real quick. And you do understand this is taking time away from my drawing, so this is going to be pretty bad. But this is a value scale. All right, seems pretty basic. And then what you do is you look at your subject, like the glove, and then you look at your value scale and say, well, this spot looks like number 5, and so you knock that out. And maybe the stitch here looks like a number 4. So you know to shade all the way down to number 4. And in this way, the value scale becomes an analysis tool that helps you more accurately capture your values early in a drawing. So, I should probably have a value scale here more often just to model best practices when it comes to shading.
Well, that was very well explained in under 60 seconds. That was really good. And Blake says, you move around when doing the drawing. How are you controlling the smudging of the graphite?
I'm not.
He's not controlling it.
It's on my hands.
If he wanted to control it a little bit more, he could put a paper towel underneath his hand.
And Matt usually does that as part of his process.
I have a paper towel over here with me, and I don't even have a drawing out in front of me.
I do try not to slide my hand across the drawing, but just kind of place it and move my fingers around some. Or, you may have noticed when I kind of blocked in, actually, I probably need to go quite a bit darker, blocked in the average value for my glove. I'm up off the page. I'm holding the pencil by the back end, not the business end, and moving pretty, with pretty broad, wide strokes because the lead is sort of laying down on the page. So I'm not touching the page when I move more vigorously. And then I just try to rest my hand and keep it relatively still for the smaller areas of shading.
I believe some people are getting concerned that you're going to lose some of the details, like the logo and the writing on the glove.
Well,
I know what you're doing, but can you explain?
Yeah, I will lose some of these details because I'm not interested in all of the details. I mean, I plan on putting the Spalding logo on there, but I am not going to write top grain leather down here.
That answered both of those questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. Because writing top grain leather down there is not going to really help anybody appreciate this as a baseball glove. If I just write top grain leather on the page, no one's going to know what that's really referencing to. But if I draw a baseball glove, they know what it is. So we've got to remember, not all details are important. And then in a sketch, like I said at the top of the hour, you have to have a goal, and the goal could be to work on the wiggly letters, right? And I could just work on the letters on a separate page, just figuring out how I'm gonna tackle that those printed letters and still make them look like they're on this organic leather subject. Leather letters. What was that?
Leather one more time.
What was that tongue twister we learned? Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. Do you remember that one?
I do vaguely remember.
Yeah, that was a couple months ago, I think.
Red, yellow,
on the live lesson.
Red,
so
leather, yellow leather.
I was getting pretty tongue twisted there myself. Yeah, so you pick and choose what details are important to you, and don't forget it's a glove, and that's the most important thing. Now, if the details, some of them get lost, hopefully I'll be able to bring them back as well.
And he does
have an
have
eraser?
the eraser as a tool. Just when I say that, it brings
Right.
the
We
eraser
haven't
back
really used it much yet, but we'll be breaking out the eraser here pretty soon and actually trying to pull the lights back out. All right, let's see. I'm going to work on the ball a little bit now. Something about the stitching in there, it's important to note it's not all the same value. So I'm not going to really draw stitches. I'm just going to make marks in place or to represent those stitches, but they'll be a little lighter over here and really, really dark over here. So they're not all the same, and we can try to indicate that change in value from the very get-go with our pressure changes. All right, I might add a little bit of extra reflected light in here on the back side of the ball. We'll see if it remains, but I kind of like to do that. When it works out, it makes things look a little extra round or three-dimensional.
Okay, Kate added red leather, yellow leather, leather letters. So you have to add leather letters at the end.
Yeah. Oh, it's even harder.
Red leather, yellow leather, leather letters.
You guys know,
that's
sometimes
really
I
hard.
get pretty tongue-twisted anyway. I probably shouldn't make things harder on myself.
Me too. Sometimes I put complete sentences together that do not make sense at all.
So it's grammatically correct, but the words just don't go together. They're still sentences.
Right. It's a sentence.
Yeah.
But it's not what I intended it to mean.
All right. We're going to get some darker marks in here now.
So the light source here is clearly coming from the lower left, which is an interesting direction.
That's right. This was laying flat on a table, so this is almost like trompe-l'oeil painting, where everything's kind of up from a surface, you know. But it was from the left, and actually that's been consistent in all my drawings this season. I've been taking my photographs on the same table for each
in
object,
front of a window, huh?
and I've been using the same light source. I haven't even moved the light source. I just keep changing the objects.
Is it a spotlight or a window?
Yeah, it is. It's a spotlight.
Okay, it's got some nice light.
So I'm looking for consistency. I'm anxious to lay my drawings out for this season next to each other and see how they look together. Since they're supposed to be related in terms of the subject, or the relationship between the parts of the subject, I thought it might be nice to try to relate them in a couple of different ways.
Tiffany is asking, is that an ebony pencil? But that's actually a General's layout pencil.
Right, that's right. Oh gosh, look,
which
getting pretty shiny back there.
The ebony pencil, in my opinion, is a little bit more shiny. It's a little bit softer, and with that combination, you're more likely to see a little bit more shine in your drawing. The General's layout pencil, although it still is a little bit shiny if you put a lot of it down, the pencil seems a little bit harder than the ebony pencil. And because of that, it keeps a sharper tip for a longer period of time. And it's not quite as dark or shiny as the ebony pencil. So it's a little bit different. I know a lot of people like ebony pencils.
Yeah, and I think I referred to it as an ebony pencil, actually. I may have done that. But it is, in fact, a General's
this is a General's layout pencil. If you're looking for one single pencil without paying a lot of money, the General's layout pencil is hard to beat.
That's true.
It's especially good for sketching. The The only other pencils I'd put in front of it are maybe a lead holder by Stiegler.
Yes.
With a variety of different leads.
And I can't find mine right now, which is probably why I'm not using it.
Well, I have one if you ever want to use it. And the other would be a Blackwing pencil, which is what I used last week, which is, a wooden pencil, but it just has a little bit of a smoother feel associated with it. So it's rewarding more so for the person making marks.
The Blackwing, right? Mm-hmm. It's a tactile experience. The reason we started drawing. Okay.
Let's see. As a novice, this is CB, I think. I might have mispronounced that. As a novice, I'm always amazed by the sketching skill. I cannot draw easily. Well, one thing you've got to understand is when you're watching someone draw or paint like this, most of the time, especially if you're watching it in a context like this, the person doing so has had lots and lots of practice. And the more that you do anything, the better you're going to get at it.
Yeah.
And the easier it's going to look to other people. So, just keep that in the back of your mind that this isn't some magical thing. It's not some magical talent that Ashley or I were born with. It's something that we've worked hard and practiced at
and gotten
time.
A lot of advice, the same kind of advice that we're giving you guys. We're just passing it on.
Exactly.
We got this advice from somebody else. And we find our own way. We find our own process as we go, but we're still building on the shoulders, of those that came before us, so to speak. Standing on the shoulders of those that came before us, those great art explorers out there.
Everyone, Eli says, we are all excited to see Ashley use the electric eraser after the keys and lock drawing. Yes.
All right. Yeah,
it's always fun to remove those
I
highlights.
can't wait. And we've got all these little teeny light edges, that we're going to dig out. And, of course, they're not white. So I'm probably going to kind of dig them out with the electric eraser and then lightly shade over them again.
Or you could use the Tombow eraser.
Or the Tombow. That may actually be more appropriate in some places. That's right.
Oh, no, here's a good idea. Orion Ebula says, I would love to see the drawings in a nice layout together. Maybe the last show of the season, you could both lay out your drawings or maybe an image uploaded to the site after.
I thought about the same thing today when I was looking at my drawings. So let's do that. Let's put them all down together and do a little critique.
Yeah, after the last, let's continue with the 10 lessons.
Okay.
And would you be down doing a bonus?
A bonus
episode
let's do
where we
that.
just talk about the drawings?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And then talk about what went well and what we would have done different, maybe. Those types of things.
I
think that's a great idea.
I still have all the drawings before.
I have mine. I think I need to find the very first one with the plugs, but the other ones actually just looked at about an hour ago.
I actually can see all 4 from where I'm sitting.
Okay, perfect.
That's right. This is your 4th, right?
This is my 4th.
Yeah. Okay.
I have one more to do.
That's a great idea. Thanks for that.
Now, I'm trying to draw this other knot really just with shading. So.
Anthony asked, what's the type of paper?
This is actually sketch paper. It's a Strathmore pad, so it's not that heavy. I think it's 65 or 70-pound paper. So it is only appropriate for sketching, which is about the amount of time that we're spending on it. I wouldn't want to use this paper for an hours-long drawing experience.
And Anthony also adds that the glove is already looking like leather.
Great. I'm glad he sees it that way.
And I think for me, the most striking area of the drawing right now is where the ball and the glove meet. You're really doing a good job creating a strong focal point there, partly because of the contrast and value.
Yeah, it's all. And I will say that I did modify this a little bit. I took a photograph of it, and then I did pump up the contrast just a tad for that purpose.
Pump up the contrast.
All right. Now, I'll try to get these little strips of leather back that got lost.
Let's see. Sterling Hurst asks,
Oh my gosh.
will you be using a tortillan? And what are your thoughts on using tortillans in general?
I think they're great. Sterling Hurst happens to be my brother, so
Hello there, Sterling.
thanks for being here today. That's great. And I use stumps and tortillans, but I'm not going to do it on this because I actually like the speckly look. It imparts some of that texture that is actually in the glove. So I don't think I'd want to destroy that in this case. But a tortillan or a stump or a sharply folded piece of paper for smudging, I'm totally not against that.
Yeah, and the blending stumps and tortillans do slow you down a little bit. So
it causes me to want to refine my drawing.
yes,
And I am trying to avoid that want.
once you start going with it, you kind of have to go for full tilt with it.
Yeah, it's kind of I mean, it's going to change the look of your drawing, so
Yeah.
you have to commit to it. Now, I need to be very careful because the orientation of these stitches starts to change as they go around. They're pretty level down here in the bottom of the ball, but they start to tilt more as we go. So that's going to be a gradual change, and I don't want to fuss over these. I just want to put a mark in and leave them alone. So I got to be kind of careful with that and get them to change, the orientation of these marks to change from horizontal to more diagonal. And then eventually the stitches are almost kind of vertical-ish back here on this side of the ball. So they're just going to move around like a fan.
Let's see here. Catherine says, I'd love to see a landscape or something living / organic.
Now, and you did a landscape not long ago.
I've been handling the organic things
That's right.
this season. And Ashley's been doing more of the, seems like just kind of everyday objects.
Mostly machined objects, which is why I chose this time, because the leather is more undulating. And I've been doing a lot of hard-edged subjects, and metallic subjects like keys and the nut and bolt. Those are kind of shiny, hard-edged objects. So this one isn't really. I mean, it was organic. It used to be alive.
It did. Both of those things.
But Matt has been drawing
Even
more.
the cork in the middle of the ball.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was all alive once almost.
It really was.
Of course,
Even the wood table that it's on.
That's true. I don't know if we'll handle the wood table, but everything in the picture was once alive. But all things must pass away, right? Including the timer. We've got 11 minutes left. It is passing away fast. All right. Got a little Spalding logo in here. It's very irregular. Doesn't look like a Spalding logo at all, so you got to be very careful and study the shape and not just draw a star. But it came out okay. Now, it is pretty light.
Point.
When we draw things, we know what they are. Sometimes we forget to study our reference, and the Spalding logo is like one of those things. All right.
Tiffany says she would love to see a pencil drawing of a furry animal. Well, I have not made my decision for the last drawing of this season that I'm going to do. I had an idea. I mentioned it last week. You remember the thing that can sting you?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I'm not completely committed to that one. So we'll see. It will probably be an animal. So...
Okay, I hope you all didn't hear those things hitting the floor. I'm sorry.
Just to explain what happened, Ashley
we're having an
floor,
earthquake.
And in the motion of getting his pencil, he hit the camera.
I apologize for that. Things just went crazy. Everything fell out of my hands for just a second.
You almost witnessed disaster.
That was close. It's a live show, but we don't want it to be that apparent. So apologize for that.
It was almost a silent live show. If we didn't have a chat box, it just...
we got ready so fast today. And I said, well, that was fast. We're ready to go. We still got 15 minutes.
Honestly, sitting here 10 minutes earlier going, well, we got that.
And then I said,
pretty quick.
I wonder what we forgot. And then we just started. And it became very apparent very quickly that we forgot the sound on my mic. So.
Oh, well, it is live. Let's see here. All right. Eli mentions here he's talking about composition, and he's pointing out the rule of thirds. And ironically, your baseball lines up with the rule of thirds.
I did consider that. I went like this when I took my photograph today. So that's what. Good job. You found me out. You've discovered my secret to composition. It's all of our secrets to composition. I'm just kidding. In order to get to prevent that bullseye effect. So that's exactly right. I tried to put the ball at approximately where these 2/3 meet. Very good.
And just to explain the rule of thirds real quickly, is if you subsected the pitcher plane down into thirds, both vertically and horizontally, there are intersection points that materialize. And if you put an area of focus in one of those areas, it's just more aesthetically successful. It leads to a more aesthetically successful composition. You can also put subjects along those lines. You see this a lot of times in films. When people are talking to each other, they're having a conversation, you don't usually see the subject right in the center of the movie screen. They're off to 1/3 to the left or 1/3 to the right. Oh, I hear the eraser.
Just warming it up. So you do have to keep the button depressed.
Yeah, and the way you're holding it is definitely the better way to hold it.
Oh, thank you for not telling me that until I had to figure it out myself.
Well, it's because you've got to keep the finger, like you said, you got to keep the button
right. You got to
pushed.
see what you're doing and keep the button pushed and still try to have some measure of control. It does try to walk across the page. It's spinning and it wants to spin off in the direction that it's going. So
it's not hard, but it's harder than you think it should be.
Yeah, I'd say that's right.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good grip on it, it might get away from you.
Going back to the pencil falling on the floor, someone mentioned that they thought something fell down in their room.
In their own room.
You must have hit the mic too when you went down, did you?
I must have.
We can't hear. Yeah, obviously.
The microphone's very sensitive.
So a little bit of wood grain back there.
A little bit. I'm actually, I've got 6 minutes left. Haven't used the kneaded eraser much, but it won't take much. I'll just be kind of dabbing it a little bit here at the end.
Well, you're not really in danger of running out of time with this one.
I don't think so.
At this point, it's kind of just honing your values a little bit.
Yeah, I got into it a little faster than I thought it was going to take, so I'm happy with that.
And, I would consider this a pretty complex subject, and you've been able to simplify it in a way that it's still communicated very clearly.
If you'll notice, I never drew this pattern up here. I never drew it with lines. I just scribbled in these the checkerboard pattern. Mm-hmm. Is it exactly in the right place? I don't think so, but it's pretty close. Don't look too close. But it still gives you the impression, the feeling of that woven leather and that light dark pattern. It's pretty attractive in terms of its visual weight. Hopefully to kind of play like a ballast, and counterbalance this ball. Now, I love kneaded erasers because you can shape them. You can use them like a kind of like a round blob, or you can put sort of a soft edge on it, and that's what I'm doing here.
Okay, Cynthia asked, what is the brand of eraser? I
believe this is a General's as well.
Oh, is it a General's eraser?
I think so. Yeah. I know it's not a Prismacolor, and I know it's not Lyra. I told you how I feel about those already.
Yeah. The one I have in my hand, I'm fiddling with one in my hand this whole time. And mine is a Faber-Castell.
Oh, yeah.
And they're, Faber-Castell, Prismacolor, and Generals, they're all going to be probably very similar, if not exactly the same.
Yeah, probably so. Those are pretty well-established brands, and they've been around a long time.
And maybe they're
Products are
asking about the rubber eraser you're using.
This one?
Yeah, is that
This pink one is, I said it's
school?
It's
the
Pink
school
Pearl-like, but it's a School Smart eraser. I don't even feel you can get these. I think this came from a school supply catalog, so this may not be exact. A Pink Pearl would be great, or any pink rubber eraser that's sort of in the shape of a parallelogram on the edge is good. It's going to have some sharper edges to it.
Okay, Estelle is asking, are you going to finish the leather under the first knot? Oh, I see what she's seeing.
This part here?
There's little straps.
Yeah, I know. There's actually another knot in there and a bunch of stitches. And
well, you know what?
Yes, I am.
Let's
I'm actually going to just put the stitches across there, but I'm going to leave that little knot out.
Let's see how it looks now. Because, in the end, no one's going to see.
That's right.
Your reference photo.
But I do want the stitches that actually go across there, but not that second knot. I'm just going to leave that one out. So this will be, we'll just see how we're going to handle this one. And I will be using this kneaded eraser. This electric eraser in just a second.
Which is needed to pull this off.
That's right.
Let's see. Eli is asking, is there a reason why you rarely use a stump in the sketches? And we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. When you break out the blending stump, that creates a different texture in the drawing, and you kind of have to continue to use it throughout.
Right. It needs to all kind of integrate. So I can't use it in one place. I need to use it a little bit all over, probably. Also, right. The kneaded eraser, I'll go ahead and tell you my philosophy. The kneaded eraser is kind of like a typewriter. Okay, it makes all of our marks look the same. So when you make a mark with
a blending stump.
I'm sorry, the blending. Yeah. I'm calling everything a kneaded eraser right now. The blending stump is kind of like a typewriter in that, if you write your name and I write your name, it's going to be clear that one of those is a forgery. But if you type your name and I type your name, they're going to look just the same. And the kneaded eraser sort of destroys our marks a little bit, the unique quality of our marks. So I'm very careful with the kneaded eraser.
You mean the blending stump?
I'm sorry. I'm going to call everything a kneaded eraser for the rest of the night. But the blending stump, I'm really careful not to use too much pressure and to retain a little bit of the marks in there when I do use it. So let's see, we got a minute and 30 seconds. So
yeah, and I'll just add to that. I have made a video about using blending stumps, and the name of the video is, do you really need blending stumps? And I would suggest watching that video. It's on YouTube. It's a free video. And there are situations when you might use a blending stump and situations where you might not use a blending stump. So it really depends on the surface that you're working with, the subject that you're dealing with, and the medium you're working with too. And, if you're working with graphite, of course, that takes out that third factor, but the surface and the subject matter play a big role in whether or not you should use a blending stump or not. And you can actually get smooth gradations of value without using a blending stump just by adjusting the amount of pressure that you place on the pencil, especially for certain surfaces.
And interestingly, we call that process blending. And then a blending stump, we call that process smudging. So sometimes there's a little issue with what we mean when we speak using those two terms, and we can misunderstand each other. But blending can just be the process of pressure changes and directional changes in layers to create smooth values.
And Cynthia is clarifying now the electric eraser brand is what she's asking about. And that is
Artisan or Artisan.
I picked that eraser up at a local art store, and I don't think that brand name is like a huge brand name. It's not like Faber-Castell or
no, I don't think so.
Like that. It's just kind of an off-brand, but it works just fine.
Okay, pencils down. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we can't put our pencils down. This drawing looks pretty okay. I think for the 45 minutes, we can work a little bit, probably maybe just a little bit more.
I think it looks great.
But I think I feel like I got enough detail in that without the reference, it's going to feel like it's the details of a baseball glove. If we just didn't know about those other knots and such, the stitches, that I left out, that kind of thing. I would love to slow down on this for the next 9 hours and actually get the little tiny white stitches in that we see in a few places in the leather or around the Spalding logo. But those kinds of things are like icing on a cake. You know, they're great when they're there, but cake without icing is really good too.
Well, maybe we could call it extra icing, because I think you've got enough information there that the sketch looks complete. I think it looks great.
Great. Well, thank you for that.
Let's see. A couple of people agree. Gary says excellent sketch. And Agradoville maybe, says very nice job taking a complex subject and simplifying it in 45 minutes. Really captured the essence of the piece. Definitely.
That's what we were going for, is essence. I like that word.
Norlene says looks great. Jen says it looks great. Ashley. Catherine says awesome job. Rocky says looks wonderful. So great job. A couple more looks great added there. And I second.
Well, I appreciate all those wonderful comments.
Really, really well done.
They make it worth the stress of the 45-minute sketch. It is a little stressful. My hands are sweaty a little bit. You know, they're starting to dry out. But your feedback really is encouraging. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and this is, as a couple people pointed out, this is a complex subject, and you were able to simplify it and still communicate the subject. It's not, the drawing's not simple. You put in the values and the shapes in the
values and
shapes.
Shapes. That's right. That was our goal. Values and shapes. Awesome.
All right. I guess that's it. And there's no need to continue working on this.
I don't think so.
We've got our cushion time here.
Right.
And
I don't want to overwork it. You know, usually we do go over a little bit, but I think this one is good the way it is. If I start to do much more, it'll be really adding more detail in that would take,
that would take you to a different place.
A whole different level. All right, probably beyond the sketch. So, let me go ahead and finish this one up here. And you know what? We may start bringing in a value. I tell you what, when I use media different than graphite, maybe I'll make a value scale to go with that, just so we have it on the screen to help us.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
it. That one is
good.
Done.
All right, let's switch back out over here then. Well, it looks like Ashley survived another Getting Sketchy episode, and if you're watching this, you did too. So thanks for joining us this evening. I think Ashley did a fantastic job. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really. I'm just reading some of the comments about the live lesson next. So it looks like some of you guys who are with us right now are going to be joining us over to live lesson in about 30 or 45 minutes or so. So that's great. We're going to keep it going. If you're joining us in the live lesson, of course, we use an oil paint, not graphite. So I'm going to get this graphite off my hands and prepare to make a different kind of mess. So.
Brent Does Art asked, will this image be available so I can finish it? Yeah, it will at some point in the future. I'm actually, this one would put me 3 lessons behind posting on the blog.
Gosh.
So I go back through the videos and I write an article.
Now this video will be available sooner. On YouTube.
The video is going to be available immediately after we're done here on YouTube, but I go back and write a post, and it includes the photo reference, it includes the finished artwork, it includes commentary about what either myself or Ashley were trying to accomplish, and the highlights of the whole process, and also the materials that were used, all of that stuff, and that's all over at the blog at thevirtualinstructor.com. And this would be the 3rd lesson that I'm behind on. So, but I have big plans for the rest of the week to get caught up on those posts. But it does take some time to do that, and I've got my hands in lots of different jars, all dealing with the website right now. I'm working on another course. There's lots of things going on here behind the scenes. So I'll do my best to get those up as soon as possible. And if you missed one of the other Getting Sketchy episodes, of course, you can you can check those out.
Jen has a good
Blog too.
comment. You can always freeze your video and just take a screenshot of a portion of the video, just so that you have a copy in the near term. But you're gonna want to read the write up, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. You could definitely do a screenshot, or just go back and watch the video again and work alongside Ashley as he's creating the drawing, and then you have the reference there. But
Even better.
there'll be a high quality photo reference available soon. I wish I could do those things faster, but I like to write them myself. So I want to make sure that you're getting the correct information.
That's important.
Anyway, all right. I think that was the last thing there. So we're going to go ahead and sign out for this evening. For those of you who are joining us over at the Virtual Instructor for the live lesson, we'll see you in just a few minutes. Remember, if you're new to the channel, you like this kind of stuff, subscribe. There's plenty more to come here in the future, and make sure that you hit the notification bell. You can check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free. There's a link in the description below. And check out our membership program. If you want to take your art to another level, the program's definitely going to help you out with that. There are a ton of courses, and they're all extensive courses, and they're presented in a logical format so that the concepts that you learn in one module build. Each module that you go through the course, the lessons build on the concepts you learn in previous modules. So it's a true to life course. And we're up to, I think, 18 now. I think it's 18, 16 or 18.
Wow.
It's one of those odd numbers, or even numbers.
Even numbers.
I'm clearly an artist. Clearly. Anyway, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign out for this evening. Good night, everybody.